Welcome to Joe's Astrology. This is a Synastry love reading for Olivia Munn on the right and John Mulaney on the left. John Mulaney does not have a birth time, so this will be somewhat limited, but we can look more at Olivia Munn's chart. Now, I try to focus more on the relationship. Although it's interesting to see, I read a little bit about her, and she has the sun here in Cancer in the second, and the moon in Pisces in the 10th. Among other things, this is a very, very emotional person who loosely, if you'd like me to look more into her chart, let me know down in the comments. She's had a lot of trouble in her life. She has this Venus retrograde. She's had children late in life in her 40s, and she's also had breast cancer. So we could really speak more on all of this. This is a very emotional person, a very emotionally distraught person, emotionally confused person. I find this chart very interesting. So if you're interested in that, let me know that down in the comments, and I'll do a reading for her as well. But let's focus on her relationship. Number one, Venus retrograde. Now, this isn't always the case, but a Venus retrograde, specifically too in Gemini, points to Uranus when it comes to relationships. And in her case, she's had a interesting, to say the least, an interesting history of relationships, and then having children there late in life in the 40s, one through a surrogate. This is definitely very much Uranian Venus activity. We can see it's also making an inconjunct to Uranus there as well. So there's that. There's this Venus that's retrograde, that's going to really show some trauma, some unique aspects about relationships, changes in relationships. And we see here she has Neptune in the 7th, on the 7th house cusp. She also has Sagittarius. So we can look at John's chart and see, okay, well, where is he showing Sagittarius, Neptune, and the ruler Jupiter is in Virgo. Right here's Jupiter, her ruler over 7th is in Virgo. And we see that he has Sun in Virgo. So there's that. And the Sagittarius, he has a Sagittarius moon. And as I said, that the Venus retrograde with her as well. Before I say that, he also has Neptune in Sagittarius as well. So I talked about the Venus retrograde and being related to Uranus, and he has Moon conjunct Uranus right there. Among other things, he has a square between Sun and Uranus. So let's take a look at some more. As I said, with her, life, there's been trauma, the illnesses. We have all this Virgo here. We have a Mars-Saturn conjunction in Virgo in the 4th, dealing with the emotional body. She has Uranus in the 6th. This is the house of illness. Virgo is a sign of illness. We move to his chart. He has his Sun in Virgo too. And it's interesting that she would be someone who needs to go through a lot of healing. And Virgo is the sign of healing. So he has this Sun in Virgo, and the moon, he's a comedian. The moon in Sagittarius. And I'm willing to bet that she likes the humor. The humor lightens up life for her, which she would desperately need with a chart like this. Way too much seriousness. You can see the North Node moving in towards Leo from the South Node in Aquarius. The MC in Aquarius, the AC in Gemini, lots of air. Really wanting to move towards comedy, lightness, family, fun. The ruler of the North Node, the Sun is in the 2nd. feelings of security. Get rid of all that insecurity around money, around what she's gonna be in life. Moon in the 10th. Venus on the rising. What she looks like. Things like that. Really lighten things up. So that's one thing that as well this chart does for John Mulaney's chart would do for an Olivia Munn. He also has Mercury in Virgo. Now she does have this Mars-Venus square moving towards a square. Well, it's retrograde, so it's moving backwards, but really close to a square there. Saturn is there too, making a square to Venus. Really showing more difficulty in relationships. Really the need to assert her individuality in this life, which would make it difficult to come together with somebody and not feel like she's losing her individuality. We can see with him, he has the same square. He has an exact square between Mars and Venus, and it's the exact same one. So he would be able to relate as well, because she would be able to relate to him. He would be able to relate to her, because both of them would have that same feeling of, especially with his Uranus moon, these are having a life that is characterized by individuality. And it's interesting that they're both in their 40s, really coming together towards their 40s, and that's what you would see with this Mars Venus. Like you would think that with a Mars Venus square, because as things are kind of going in a flowing direction, as a person gets older with that Mars Venus square, they will come to be more secure in their individuality, and that they know that they're not going to lose it, and then they'll have an easier time coming together with someone else and still feel like they can express that Uranian quality. They're not going to lose their uniqueness. They're not going to lose their self. They know this. Hopefully they know this by now in their 40s. He's got Jupiter and Mars in Scorpio. She has Jupiter and Mars in Virgo. They make a sextile to each other. So in thinking, sometimes you think Virgo and Scorpio might not go together, but we're talking about being psychologists, being healers. They both would, particularly her. I don't really know that much about him, but he does have a South Node in Capricorn. It's possible that he does have Pluto and Saturn together. It's possibly that both of them would have went through a lot in life. And with those Virgo and Scorpio placements coming together, they can act as psychologists for each other. They would be interested in learning about each other's the depths of each other. And that would definitely make for a very emotionally satisfying relationship. We can look at his South Node. South Node's in Capricorn. Sometimes we look for planets on the South Node and the North Node, and she doesn't have anything on the South Node, but she has North Node in Leo, and his Venus is conjunct her North Node. So that would be very, very compatible in this life, having Venus conjunct the North Node. And on his North Node, her sun is on his North Node. So we have both of their charts have two powerful planets for relationships, really pulling them together in this life. We can really look at Pluto too. What's interesting is that Pluto has made its pass through these signs, these planets down here in Virgo, and now it's moving into Aquarius. And it's going to be making we're looking at Pluto as being like major life changes. It seems like, for the next 15 years, there's not really much going on. There's a trine to Venus. There's a trine to itself in her chart before it really hits anything. And we can look at his chart and see Pluto. Same thing, moving here, getting into Aquarius, where it's going to be making a trine to that Saturn, trine to itself. There will be some squares to Scorpio. So there's that. And there'll be an opposition to his Venus. So not much going on for the next 10 15 years, specifically for her. So hopefully moving forward, they'll have a nice 10-year period at the very least of compatible, enjoyable relationship.